Hi, and welcome to the Sami Offer School of Communications at IDC Herzliya. I'm Anouk Lori, and today we have the honor and pleasure to host a United States delegation straight from the White House. They are Cami Croft from the Department of Energy, Peter Levin from Veteran Affairs, and Macon Phillips, Director of Digital Strategy at the White House. This delegation has been brought to Israel by the Department of Digital Diplomacy at the Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Also with us are journalists from various media in Israel. Welcome all. Macon, welcome.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here.
I'll start by asking you a few questions, and then we'll take questions from the journalists.
Sounds great.
So I'd like to start by asking you what your role at the White House really entails on a day-to-day basis. I mean, you get up in the morning, what do you do? What does a typical workday look like?
So there's no typical workday at the White House, and I don't think that's something specific to my job. Over the last 3 years, we've had just an incredible range of experiences. When the president came into office in 2009, we faced an incredible set of challenges. And from the economy to healthcare to foreign policy, there's always something new, always a new challenge to take on. And that's been incredibly tiring, but also thrilling. In terms of our team, we think about 3 goals every day that we come in. The first is how we amplify the president's message as technology changes how and where people get information. So we're in 2012. People still get their information from newspapers and television, but increasingly they're getting their information from social networks, from websites, from email, from all sorts of things, and we want to make sure that we have a voice there. We're thinking about how we can make the White House more open, and that isn't just about living up to the president's commitment to an open and accountable government. It's about making our content more accessible, because increasingly the people coming to our website aren't policy experts or journalists, they're regular Americans who are looking us up in a search engine, landing on our site and wanting to know what we're doing about certain issues. And we want to make sure we're putting that information forward in a way they can understand. And finally, the most exciting area that we're working on is creating meaningful opportunities for citizens to be able to participate in their government, whether that's just asking questions and getting answers, whether it's helping raise awareness, or whether that's actually participating and driving policy making. That's the area that certainly is the biggest challenge, but has been the thing that we feel like we've made a lot of progress on.
So when you post a tweet or a Facebook post, I mean, I don't know if you actually do it yourself or any kind of posting online, how many people have to look at it? And does the president ever look at it before you send it?
So the vast majority of our tweets and Facebook posts are not from the president's hand himself, and we're fairly clear about that. Our process actually pushes a lot of responsibility on the content out to the edge. So we have there's a woman on my team who's the point person for the posting on Twitter and Facebook. She works with other people on her team. She'd be the first to tell you that it's a team effort, a lot of coverage that goes into that. But she's responsible for those messages. And the model is that if she's uncomfortable about something or she wants to say something but isn't quite sure, we have an expression in the United States, we raise it up the flagpole. So she flags it to me. A lot of those times, it's actually things I want to raise up the flagpole too. So we try to keep the majority of our content quickly approved and sort of something that she can do herself so that we can be more conversational and quick rather than more formal and overthought. And we think that's been pretty successful.
All right, thanks. We'll take some questions. Please raise your hand if you have any. Sir, yes, please introduce yourself.
Omer Kedar, IDC Radio. I wanted to ask, how do you think the best to deal with the negative campaigns on social networks and the boundaries of speech on the candidates' wall?
So that's a great question. And I should point out at the outset that I work on the official side of the president's sort of online presence. The whitehouse.gov website, the White House Facebook page and Twitter account, the BarackObama.com website, the @BarackObama Twitter handle. those are controlled by his election campaign, and that's not something that I work on. So I can speak generally about the issue, but not in sort of the context of the 2012 campaign. What I can say about negative comments is that is two things. The first is we really believe in keeping an open online program that reflects the values of our country in terms of free speech. So we don't moderate comments on our social media presences. It's a vibrant discussion, certainly not always positive, not always negative, but open, and that's important to us. What happens in political debate sometimes is that people base their opinions on the wrong information. And they have a thing, confirmation bias, where they look for information they agree with to sort of further support their opinions, which is why we view it as imperative that we're able to get our information out. And it's certainly the president's point of view, but many times people don't even understand that. They don't understand where he stands on the issues and the work that he's doing and his plan for moving forward. And so we're interested in developing content that helps people understand that. But in addition to that, making sure that content gets to not just the people who like us, but the people who are skeptical of us, because we serve all of them.
Any other questions?
Yes, over here.
My name is Nama. I'm from GLZ Radio, Galatz. In comparison to the 2008 campaign, what are the new challenges that this election posed regarding the use of social media and getting to the voter?
So there's a lot of new challenges since 2008, not just in sort of the context of the political campaign, but just generally. Because again, I can't speak specifically to the president's re-election campaign. What I can say is that social media has had an accelerating effect on the news cycle. It's been very interesting to see how news spreads even more quickly than we thought it could in 2008. The story of at 4 p.m. can be across the internet by 4:30, and that's something you have to deal with on a 24-hour basis. It'll be interesting to see how that has an impact over the next coming months. It certainly had an impact over the last 3 years, and it's something that communications departments and engagement departments have to adapt for.
We'll take two last questions.
Tal Schneider, I'm a reporter. How do you, I'm sorry if I missed the first few questions, but how do you transfer people who are using social media into becoming, political active, or maybe putting in a donation or coming to campaign events? This was probably a big challenge in 2008, but I suppose the challenges are getting, bigger. How do you do that, from now on, broadening the base and getting more and more people engaged?
So it's a good question about how we increase engagement, not just in the political sense, but in terms of the government, which was just the side that I'm on. I don't focus on questions about how to solicit donations and things like that for political campaigns because I'm a government official. We sort of separate those two in the United States. But the question's still valid for work on the government side, which is how do you get people at the grassroots level to feel like the work that they're doing in online campaigns or off actually has an impact on the government. We could have come out of the gates in 2009 with a grand panoply of opportunities for public input, but we didn't because we wanted to make sure that every time we call for public input and receive public advocacy, that we're able to process that we're actually able to treat that with the respect it deserves. And what we found is setting clear expectations helps people organize for outcomes. So we've put forward a petitioning platform, actually, in September of 2011, where anyone can create a petition on the White House website, and if they collect enough signatures, the administration issues an official on-the-record response. What's been important to us, we started at 5,000, and we had to increase it to 25,000 because we got so many at first. And we thought that was actually success. We were clear about changing the goal. We didn't apply it to petitions that were already there, but moving forward. And what was important is that people who participated in this had an expectation about what would happen if certain things happened. And that really helped the organizations and the people who created the petitions organize to spread it even further.
Yes, please, sir.
David Shamach, Times of Israel. If you were to give some advice to local politicians how to run a social media campaign, considering there might be an election soon, what would be the top 2 or 3 strategies or ideas that you would develop to them?
Certainly I'm not the expert from the United States to speak to Israeli politics. I do know some about United States politics. So to the extent the advice I would give American local officials, perhaps others can take from that. One of the fundamental lessons is that we are past the point where you can control the conversations out there. The traditional media used to be something that was fairly easy to keep an eye on and understand what was bubbling up. Now with social media, there's so many different conversations happening, whether they're convenient to you or not, and you ignore them at your own peril. What's really important is to become a participant in these conversations, because people, I think, will increasingly wonder why you don't have a presence there, why your voice isn't represented. So it mirrors actually in many ways offline, where you have to learn to engage with people who disagree with you, because that's really the most important thing, to sort of make sure that you're not just speaking to your supporters, but you're actually speaking to people who are passionate about issues.
Thanks. Macon, how do you balance between the need for privacy and confidentiality on the one hand and social media's constant demand for instant content?
That's a great question, and it's certainly something that the administration has a priority on. There's a few things. First, one of the less sexy things that we've done in the last 3 years is through the Office of Management and Budget. They issued guidance to modernize the approach that government had to using social media, because government historically it had a sort of default posture of a very conservative approach, because we were very wary of the privacy impact of using these. And the policy, I think, is actually a really great model for the right way to do things. It requires agencies to do a privacy impact assessment. It requires agencies to talk about what information they have access to and what information they don't, as they're using services like Facebook and Twitter and others. And then it also, I think, in a way, pushes these companies to improve their privacy practices. So it's been a wholly positive thing, particularly because it's allowed government agencies to get into the space in a way that they are comfortable with, because the boundaries have been defined. On a day-to-day basis, we try to be clear about how information will be used. And we don't pull in all this sort of consumer information and model it. That's not something that we have the capacity to do. We're not doing at the White House. But to the extent we're asking people to share stories, to share things about their lives, many times they do that explicitly because they want it shared broadly. They want it used by the White House. They believe it's something that the White House should know or that the rest of the public should know. And so when we're pulling in that information, asking them through email, asking them through social media, we're crystal clear that it's going to be used in a larger conversation.
We have a question over there.
Omer from Calcalist. A year ago, the Obama assassination, the news of it got out a lot ahead before you intended, before the official press conference. It started with a tweet from a Rumsfeld aide. How do you contain conversation or control news that you want to release on your own schedule? And have you learned anything from the Bin Laden case?
Oh,
the Bin Laden assassination.
Right, okay. I mean, as I said earlier, I think increasingly it's hard to control stories. There are certain things that the government knows that are secret until it releases. There are certain news that the government knows that sort of is within the government until it's public. So in some ways we have an advantage, because many of the things we do drive news. And so we'll know about an event the president's going to have in a certain area before everyone else does. And that's sort of how you plan these events. And so in some ways we're able to prepare content, we're able to prepare engagement around that, so that when the public finds out about it, there's already resources for them to learn more about it and so forth. But once a story has sort of gotten traction in social media, whether it's something that we agree with or it's favorable to us, or it's something that's part of our larger communication strategy, we still have to pay attention to it and oftentimes engage with it because it's something that's important to Americans. And that's, I think, a flattening of the communications landscape that we're seeing. And I think that's probably a good thing because people should be able to talk about the things that they care about, and their government, being representative, should be able to provide a point of view in terms of what the administration's policy is on that. That's why we've created the We the People platform. That's why we have a multi-channel White House that's speaking not just through press conferences, but through the website, through social media. And it's why we're addressing a number of topics every day, because I would imagine Israel has the same challenges where we have many different issues that we talk about, many different things people are passionate about. And we can no longer be a one topic at a time institution. We have to be able to speak to many different audiences about the things that they care about.
Is there any specific lessons
Just
Is there any specific lesson you've learned from the Bin Laden case?
just
You
quickly,
know,
please.
I think that the one of the interesting things that we found from about a year ago, I guess on May 1st, a year ago tomorrow, when the president addressed the nation and talked about the news with bin Laden, we put out portions of what his statement was on Twitter, just as he was saying it. And the most popular tweet, the most popular excerpt of what he said, at least on Twitter, was that America is not at war with the Muslim world. That was something that resonated incredibly broadly, that there's a difference between violent extremism and religion and Islam. And that was something that I think at that night, people had such a reaction to this individual person that to see a larger message be the most resonant portion of his speech, at least in terms of what people are sharing on Twitter, was, I think, a good example of where America puts its priorities. You know, that there's a larger message to that action a year ago and our ongoing efforts there.
Just quickly, the role of social media in politics going forward, will it replace traditional media or will it overtake traditional media in importance?
I think that looking at traditional media and new media as separate things is a false choice. That if you look at any traditional media institution, they're embracing new media. The New York Times has a very vibrant set of blogs, a very vibrant presence on Twitter. But what I think the bigger question is the separation and the relationship between journalism and publishing. There's a great thinker in the United States named Clay Shirky who's done a lot of work in terms of media theory. And he recently got onto a point that I thought was really interesting about the fact that publishing used to be a big job. You had to run the printing presses, and you were a gatekeeper in many ways about that. And it created a level of importance for publishers that made them very powerful in the media landscape. And now publishing is hitting publish on a website. And that shift in power dynamic should be very empowering to journalists. And I think it's driving a lot of disruption in the industry. And in the long run, I think it's going to be incredibly positive.
Macon, thank you so much.
Thank you. It's a real honor to be here.
Thank you to the journalists, to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for giving us the honor to host the United States delegation. And thank you so much for watching. And a very special thanks to all the IDC students involved in the production of this program.